Do you think you are a left-brained person because of your interests in logic and numbers? Or do you think your creativity makes you right-brained? Whichever side you fall on, you would admit it helps understand your person better. However, what if I told you that is not the full story? Let's explore how this theory has shaped human understanding of the brain and how it's perhaps regarded as one of the most persistent misunderstandings about the human brain. But first, how did it all begin? The origins of this myth dates back to the 1940s, where a radical treatment for epilepsy opened the way for new discoveries. Brain science at the time was at its early stages, and epilepsy was considered an untreatable disease. In an extreme attempt to help epileptic patients, doctors started making groundbreaking procedures, particularly severing the corpus callosum, which is the thick band of nerves connecting the two halves of the brain. These halves are called hemispheres, and the doctors thought that if they found a way to cut the corpus callosum, it would stop seizures from spreading between the brain's hemispheres. This went on until the 1960s when a neuroscientist, Roger Sperry, studied patients with surgically split brains and found something strange, but fascinating. Sperry reported that patients had differing results when shown an object. He discovered that patients who were shown an object in their right field of view had no difficulty naming it, but they could not describe it when shown on the left field of view. The reason was because the left hemisphere, where speech and language are typically processed, never got the message. The brain's hemispheres each have their own areas of specialty, and without the corpus callosum connecting them, those areas could not exchange information. Speech and language are processed on the left side of the brain, but information that comes in from the left eye is processed on the right. Sperry's experiments revealed that each hemisphere processes the world independently, with the right controlling spatial recognition and the left taking on language and detail, such as recognizing faces and interpreting patterns. This made psychologists begin to wonder how the differences between the hemispheres could create two distinct personality types. Could it be that some people are just left-brained and others simply right-brained by nature? The experiment indeed made way for a simpler understanding of the complex human personality. An oversimplified conclusion was reached, and soon it spread like wildfire. Scientists had concluded that left-brained people were more logical, while creative people aligned more with using their right brain. It did not take long before the idea exploded into pop culture. Self-help books, magazines, and even classrooms echoed these sentiments, and soon it solidified into a general truth. Before, it was thought that solving a math problem or writing a poem only lit up one side of the brain. However, modern science has revealed that both hemispheres are active during any activity. They are constantly communicating, collaborating, because in the brain, everything is connected. It turned out that the human brain, your brain, is not divided into two simple operating systems. It is a network of neurons, however complex, but intricately interconnected web of systems that all work together. Language, which was once believed to be left dominant, also uses the right hemisphere to interpret tone and context. This reveals that it is almost impossible to understand language without both sides of the brain working together. According to modern science, the idea of left brain versus right brain people is outdated, misleading, and largely confusing. Even with specialized regions in the brain is built for cooperation. Now, let us be clear. There are indeed specializations in the brain, where the left hemisphere tends to handle language processing and details, while the right side takes on visual spatial awareness and face recognition. However, this does not mean that one side solely controls its specializations. Different types of processing occur in different zones, and these zones are constantly communicating. The left hemisphere is generally more active in language processing, especially for grammar, vocabulary, and sentence construction. It focuses on the details and the pieces that make up the whole. The lateralized functions associated with the left hemisphere include language processing, which is broken down into speech formation, language comprehension, grammar and syntax, reading and writing. Also associated with the left hemisphere is analytical and logical thinking and problem solving. The right hemisphere, on the other hand, tends to lean into the bigger picture. Its performance excels at interpreting spatial relationships, recognizing faces, and processing the emotional tone behind a voice. The right hemisphere further controls visuospatial skills that deal with understanding and manipulating objects in 2D or 3D spaces. This side of the brain also handles nonverbal communications such as the interpretation of body language, music, and art. Specializations in the brain do not equal dominance. While one region might be slightly efficient at a task, it does not mean it owns that task. It can simply be thought of as a body of interdependent units. And the thought that your brain is hardwired a certain way, which makes you excel at certain tasks, is really not a good one. Reports have noted that certain people are born without the corpus callosum, but gradually develop neural pathways to compensate. This only means that the brain is constantly rewiring itself to maintain communication and connection between hemispheres. The most interesting phenomenon about the brain is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's fundamental ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections or changing the strength of existing ones. Neuroplasticity allows the brain to adapt to changes, learn new things, and compensate for injury or missing structures. This means you can train your brain to be a well-rounded powerhouse. To boost logical thinking, you can start by completing puzzles, playing chess, programming, or other strategy games. These activities strengthen your ability to analyze, plan, and solve problems. To boost creativity, on the other hand, you can journal, sketch, explore designs, or even make music. Creativity goes beyond self-expression, and it involves more flexibility, curiosity, and seeing new possibilities. Neuroplasticity argues that learning changes everything. Every time you learn a new skill, the brain physically changes, such that neural pathways related to that skill are activated and strengthened. Complex skills, on the other hand, almost always require the coordinated effort of both hemispheres. For example, learning music involves the understanding of structure and timing, which is often associated with the left hemisphere, including processing melody, harmony, and emotions associated with the right hemisphere. This way, the brain builds and strengthens the connections between these areas and across both hemispheres. To master the new skill, the brain works as an integrated whole where the two hemispheres have been reported to be in constant communication via the corpus callosum. And the idea of operating primarily out of one side of the brain ignores this fundamental collaboration. The interesting bit of it all is that regardless of whichever activity is done, the whole brain benefits. Also, the brain is designed to grow through experience. So, what does the future hold for the human brain? Today, there are tools that neuroscientists a few decades ago could only dream of. Functional MRIs, brain mapping algorithms, and artificial intelligence are revealing something truly mind-blowing. That the brain isn't just left or right, but a network which is fluid, adaptable, and endlessly complex. Perhaps too complex to fit into a box of theories or thoughts. Researchers have begun to identify overlapping circuits that control emotion, decision-making, memory, and imagination, and all of these work together. Therefore, a math problem can light up visual areas, while painting can activate logic and planning centers. Basically, the line between being creative or being analytical is fading fast. So the next time you hear someone say they are not a math person or they are just not creative, remember that they have put themselves inside the bubble of this myth. The myth is dead, and science is clear. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.